Welcome to the Building the Future podcast. I'm your host, Bill Fioravanti, CEO of the Orange County IDA. I've worked in economic development for more than a decade, and in that time I had never met a professional who set out wanting to be an economic developer at the start of their career. Everyone I knew fell into this line of work from government, private sector, even unrelated businesses like education. That is until I met Conor Eckert. Born and raised in Montgomery, New York, Conor graduated from SUNY Orange, and by the time he got to SUNY Binghamton, seeking a master's degree in public administration, he had a burning desire to be an economic development professional and to bring those skills back to Orange County. He learned about business attraction, about putting complex development deals together, and even leveraging incentives in a prudent way, all intended to come back to Orange County and bring better jobs, better careers, and a better future to Orange County. I often described Conor as a prodigy because of his unique makeup and his skill set, but Conor's time is now. He's now president and CEO of the Orange County Partnership, one of the most highly regarded economic development offices in New York State and beyond. And we're excited that he's here today on the Building the Future podcast to share his story and share his insights. Conor Eckert, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
Really appreciate it. So you're kind of in your newly minted role. How's it been going so far?
It's been great. It's been, normally the summer is kind of the, as you know, in economic development, things die down. Uncharacteristically busy this summer with projects and opportunities and new relationships. So that's been great, but great staff, great continuity, fortifying and maintaining our key relationships like with you guys. So no, it's all been good. It's all been good.
It certainly looks like the partnership has not missed a beat, actually picked up speed for sure.
Yeah, we thank God. We, again, it's all attributed to the team and the relationships. And I think everyone's cohesive around a singular mission, not even just the partnership, but with the IDA and the chamber, and everyone's kind of rowing in this really unique, very singular direction. And it's exciting to just be part of the team. And it's a good time to be in economic development.
It certainly is. We're having fun along the way, which is great.
I'd say so.
I mentioned in the opener how unique you are as someone that really sought out to become an economic developer and wanted to come home and do that work here in Orange County. Tell us when that dream or how that dream came about, for you to do that.
Yeah. It probably started at Pine Bush High School when I was 14 or 15 years old, and there was this program called Law and Leadership. And it was the first of its kind at the school. We were, Gen 1 or Gen X, whatever the heck you want to call it. And you had to go, instead of taking social studies, you went to go shadow, people in law positions, people in political office, in government office. So instead of going to social studies, we were going to spend time with Senator Larkin at the time, where I met Brian Maher when he was on his come up, right? And that was in high school. And then we met Mayor Joe DiStefano in Middletown. So we got exposed to all these different levels of government at a really young age. And what I found is all of these, whether it's legislative or it's DPW focused or is economic development focused, community development focused, I loved being able to be part of something where you could see tangible results. Because a lot of, from a policy perspective, it takes a long time to see, often policy become tangible community results. With economic development, there's a policy position to it, but it's also very often immediate results within a few years of an initiative. Mm-hmm. So that's what initially drew me to it, but it dates back to Pine Bush High School, first of its kind law and leadership program. Principal Aaron Hopmeyer, who's still there, who actually, funny enough, went with us in our delegation to Taiwan, given his, workforce leadership and training leadership. He joined us earlier this year. But it started there, and I was exposed at a young age and got the bite. And from there, I went to SUNY Orange and stayed with the city of Middletown for a bit, and then ran around with the mayor and Maria Bruni, doing community development and being involved with things happening in the city.
Great exposure.
Yeah, it was, and I just couldn't get out of it. I fell in, I couldn't get out of it. Went away to Binghamton, and then fell into some roles up there with the city, and then the county, and some consulting work when I was in graduate school, and then had the opportunity that a lot of people in Hudson Valley have when you're graduating, is either go to New York City or try to find a job at home. And for me, it was a no-brainer when the opportunity came up to run the Montgomery IDA. I don't want to commute to the city.
Right.
I want to make an impact locally and draw on the experience that I started gaining when I was like 14 or 15. So it was a really unique genesis to get here, but I got the economic development bite and just couldn't shake it.
Awesome. Terrific. And I think your first official job in the county in this capacity was as the executive director of the town of Montgomery IDA.
Yes.
right? So that was a good experience. And at a time where there's a lot happening in that town,
Yeah.
reckoning with a lot of change and development projects coming. And then you became VP of the Orange County Partnership.
Yes.
And I want to ask you, you recently succeeded Maureen Hallahan, who was frankly a legend in the business.
No doubt.
Tell us a little bit about what it was like to work side by side with Maureen.
Yeah, it was first off the honor of a lifetime to work with Maureen, and Maureen has this amazing profile of economic development leadership, and being the leader in the room at all times, right? But I got to see Maureen on a personal note. She's fun. She was caring. She deeply cared not just about the team and the staff, but also cared about when we're doing a project, it's not just cutting a ribbon or groundbreaking. Like there was something deeply intrinsic that mattered to her about creating jobs and giving people opportunities. So I got a front row seat to see the dynamic economic developer Maureen, but also the person Maureen, which was deeply meaningful. And she's a friend, I think a forever friend to me, and someone who I base a lot of my approach to complex situations or projects, whether it be project focused or relationship focused. I often think of our years together, both advancing economic development, but also just focusing on the mission of economic development 101. I think is setting the table and trying to execute to bring opportunities to a community, trying to raise people up, and trying to create wealth in communities. And I very often draw on what Maureen and I did together, and what I learned from Maureen. Often draw on that, no doubt about it.
I'm glad you mentioned the person behind it, because in our work, not everyone appreciates what you do. People are concerned or are fearful of change oftentimes.
Yeah.
And people don't see that personality, the person behind her, behind that, economic developer kind of role. So she does care deeply about people, cares about the community. And one of our friends and colleagues, Steve Gross, I think accurately said, thousands of people in Orange County owe their job to Maureen. And I think that's really, a legacy that she'll leave behind for a long time.
Absolutely. And to, have the opportunity to work with her, and learn from her in the transitional stage of my career and her career was an amazing experience, because often you think, maybe about transitions, there could be friction between the outgoing CEO and the person who's coming up the ranks, right? But that was just never the case with us. It was always an open door on questions, on training, on collaboration. There was never any ego or friction. It was a true partnership. And like I said, I mean, our relationship, was not just, nuts and bolts economic development, but got to know her really well, her family really well. She got to know my wife really well. So, we built something that I think was impactful from an economic development perspective, but transitionally, it was smooth, it was seamless. And I think that's why where we are today as an organization, there's continuity, there's smooth sailing so far.
No loss of momentum.
No, which is great. And when someone's a CEO of an organization for over 20 years, there's, often you look at transitions, nonprofit and private sector focused, there is a bit of a stumbling block or learning curve on the job. And no doubt I'm learning every day. But what I'm saying is the transition process put us in a position to really hit the ground running, execute, maintain our core mission, vision, values, but also look to the future and try to execute at a new scale. So, really thankful to work with Maureen, but also have her as a friend,
Sure.
Same as you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way. Another mover and shaker that you work closely with is County Executive Steve Newhouse.
Yeah.
You actually took an expedition out to Taiwan.
Oh, yeah.
So to try and tap into the tech sector and bring that back to stateside here. Tell us about how he approaches economic development opportunities like what you saw in Taiwan.
Yep. It's a great question. And, I've had the privilege as of you of working with many elected officials across the course of our economic development travels. But the county executive has this really unique ability to be aggressive, but also hyper targeted in his messaging and what we want to attract as a county. And I've seen him, when we were in Asia, we sat down with executives from major manufacturing and tech operations. And he had this really unique ability to be able to kind of call on global kind of macroeconomic and global geopolitical movement in the world, bring it specific to Orange County and the relationship and the conversation at hand, but also be a statesman for the county and for New York in a leadership role. So I would say his style is aggressive, but highly tactical and really unique nuance to be able to pull all of these, what seemingly are, disparate issues, whether it's, the war in Ukraine, geopolitical uncertainty, the energy prices in Europe, supply chain concerns domestically and abroad, being able to pull those issues together and make a cohesive argument as to why it makes sense to bring a business to Orange County in New York. So really an honor to work with that guy. He's no one like him really energy-wise either.
No doubt about it. Keeping up with him
One-on-one.
was a challenge. Exactly. It keeps us on our toes. But yes, from his background, his role as county executive and his military as a commander.
Oh, yeah.
He has a lot of, as you said, different perspectives and a lot of knowledge he pulls into it.
Absolutely.
And he's also an incredible relationship builder. You see, he's that everyman that, the public can connect with. And you bring him to officials from foreign countries or whatever it might be, and he knows how to have rapport and build those relationships.
And it's kind of amazing, 17-hour flight, no jet lag, which is something I still ask him how he did it to this day. But the craziest thing is, the next morning it was 17-hour flight and then like a 14-hour time difference, something crazy. So we get there the first night. We go to the conference. We're meeting with some folks. There's a press conference right away that we're participating in. Then we spend the whole day at the conference. We go to the hotel that night, and then the next morning at 6, we woke up to a message. It was like, "Hey, meet me at the gym." The guy was at the hotel gym at 6 in the morning. Now, we did get out of bed and go meet him, but it spoke to the level of energy that you don't really see often, that I think can inspire and motivate a team to really galvanize around something. And you see that with county government, so it was a good experience being out there with a county exec. And then Rick Golden came, who's the economic development expert and a great statesman, and Alan Sorensen, who's a dynamic planner. And then, of course, Aaron Hopmeyer, who was my high school principal. So it was funny to see that come full circle, but also...
I wonder what they thought of him over there.
He lights the world on fire, man. He really does. And but he's carved out something that, he can pull federal and state dollars and foundation dollars to build this really dynamic workforce training center. And he's churning out talent from high school directly into the labor force. And I think as we try to attract these projects that need dynamic workforce and skilled training, the principal, Aaron Hopmeyer, has a story to tell as to how he did it, nimbly, how he designed a facility. So he went out there and told that story, and it really resonated with building not just a college pipeline, but a K through 12 pipeline,
which I think started back then. It's a key channel for workforce development going forward. Absolutely. So you'll see that a lot of young people are bypassing college, and they're building skills in great institutions like what Pine Bush High School is doing. Really interesting. In general, with elected officials, town supervisors, mayors, and such, can their leadership really make a difference with economic development projects? Do they actually impact deals getting done? What's your experience there?
Absolutely, yes, 100%. And we've had the good fortune of announcing a few projects on the site selection side. Mainly manufacturing projects, and the commonality across a lot of these projects, once you get to the site tour stage, which is, by then we've done months of site vetting and due diligence. We've answered tremendous Excel sheets that are asking about water and sewer capacity and asking about power and asking about, kind of site fundamentals that you need to address in order to at least entice a company. Then you get to the site tour station. As you know, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
That's where a company needs to feel comfortable with the community they're investing in. So when your chief elected for your town, village, city, county, whomever it may be, can come to a site tour, can be a great ambassador for the community, who can articulate an entitlement process and really play to this concept of, when you're competing for a project, you need to de-risk the investment opportunity, because there are other sites often in the tri-state area. Sometimes we're competing with other countries for projects. So the risk mitigation factor is everything. So if an elected official can come on a site tour, can make a company executive feel comfortable, can answer the questions on local processes and community feel and community engagement, that moves the needle significantly, because without it, there is a risk to locating at the community. And companies that are looking again at multiple sites are measuring risk in its truest form, not just site related, but the feel for the community. So you need to have that ambassador. And we're fortunate, every site tour that I've done in Orange County, it doesn't matter, if it's a village or a town or a city or a county, we've had great elected officials who step up every time and fight to create good jobs. So I'm very thankful for that so far. Haven't had a bad experience with an elected official.
We are fortunate. We've got officials who get it, who want to better their communities, understand the importance of economic development. And I think the partnership does a great job of educating the public, educating our elected officials, private sector folks as well. So I think that is, part of the reason why they're on board, where they get it. and why they can be effective in these
And
moments.
it's complicated economic development. Like, again, you know it as well as anyone. It's, we're talking about often greenfield sites that have zoning prescribed to it, and then you need to understand the infrastructure profile and, your building envelope and your footprint, and then how can you develop the site, and how can we do it responsibly where it's consistent with community character and design standards. And these are questions that I think elected officials are often asking prospects, and the right questions. And I think asking those questions in a thoughtful manner is a sign to a prospect that this is a serious community that's going to be a partner. Asking the tough questions is often a great indicator of this community gets it. And then once you get past that, as you know, we're getting more granular. Now we're talking about the complexity of a labor force and building a talent pipeline. And does the market have enough talent where we can satiate, 100, 200, 500 employee operation? So there are just all of these different measures. It's complicated. And, the role that economic developers and elected officials play, I think, is highly educational. And it's highly nuanced in the way we're balancing a project that will have positive economic impacts with community character and design and other project related impact by way of traffic and infrastructure. So that balance is critical. And I think, like you said, we have elected officials who are nuanced enough to ask the questions and make good projects even better and more comprehensive by balancing that.
For sure. All right, this is the part I'm really excited about. You have great vision to bring what you call high growth, high impact sectors to Orange County, bring better jobs, better careers, sustainable, that will be around. I'd like you to help summarize what the real opportunities for us are in Orange County. We all want to, shoot for the stars and but not everything fits everywhere.
Yep.
Not every county or municipality can host certain types of projects. So I want to rapid fire with you a little bit and talk about certain sectors and have you tell us what the real opportunity is for the county. First of all, we talk a lot about life sciences. First of all, define that for the audience. Not everyone understands that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're exactly right. This is the exciting part of our job. We get to do some soul searching and understand who the county is and what our assets are, what our weaknesses are, and then try to develop a strategy that can attract these. I like what you say, the future ready sectors or high growth sectors, whatever term we want to describe to it. But from a life science perspective, and this is one of the sectors we're particularly excited about. And we have been for quite some time, but now we're transacting on opportunities, which is great. We're seeing more and more site selection opportunities. But life sciences, we ascribe to effectively whether it's advanced manufacturing, R&D related processes aimed at creating products that are utilized in our everyday lives related to human health. So think of, nutritional supplements, think of, advanced medical devices, think of, actual ingestible pharmaceuticals, critical health-oriented products that are critical to everyday human life that we're not thinking about, but are high impact, highly competitive, sought after sectors that create well-paying jobs. And again, when we think about supply chain, which is such a critical topic in site selection, domesticating the pharmaceutical supply chain is not often thought about, but it's a localized economic benefit, but also from a American perspective, similar to semiconductors, I'm sure we'll talk about. Domesticating and localizing a pharmaceutical manufacturing supply chain is good locally and both in the macro sense for the country and our region, more than anything. But that's a long-winded way of saying it's making products that are critical to human health, and we're utilizing them every day. We're probably not thinking about them.
So what's the real opportunity for Orange County to seize this sector and to create a base of, say, pharmaceutical manufacturers here?
Yeah. So, the way we approached this, it was, you think about the Hudson Valley region, and often, we're working to attract projects to Orange County, but we're thinking about things highly regionally. And we're pooling regional assets to make a case for why Orange County, I think at the center of the region logistically, makes sense to locate projects. So from an opportunity perspective, you look at Regeneron and you look at Pfizer, you look at Strides, all of these pharmaceutical manufacturing operations and R&D operations in southern Hudson Valley. That's Rockland, it's Westchester. For a very long time, we've said we have an R&D heartbeat in the region. There was this concept a decade ago of BioHud Valley, which I love, and I think we're actually making strides to advancing that strategy, a decade later. But we have a R&D pedigree and an ecosystem that we can tap into. We have a validated regional market, which means we have labor, we have, patent activity, we have the higher educational institutions that can support these types of sectors. But the opportunity for us, I think, lies not so much in the R&D, which is concentrated in Westchester and Rockland, but on the supply chain manufacturing. So a recent announcement on the site selection basis, we announced a project by the name of Garanet Pharmaceuticals with Governor Hochul, last month. And they are set to manufacture and process cutting-edge compound called chlorhexidine gluconate, which is very high-end hospital-grade antiseptics that'll create, 100 to 150 high-paying, career-oriented jobs. So when you think of these products called APIs, pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, there's hundreds, if not there's certainly thousands of APIs out there that we're not seeing every day, but we're using every day. So we utilize this regional ecosystem of R&D heritage and big names that will showcase companies like Garanet that we have the right fundamentals to support the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Now, we parlay that into, we have shovel-ready sites, we have proximity to these institutions, and for these API companies, they're looking for proximity to their customers, which could be Regeneron or Stryker or Cardinal Healthcare or McKesson. So we're selling these really unique regional assets and trying to position the county as a manufacturing hub for that because we're proximate to the labor, the R&D heartbeat, the suppliers. So the opportunity for us is absolutely, it's manufacturing, it's boutique R&D in APIs in particular, and it's leveraging regional assets to attract manufacturing that needs to be or wants to be close to their customers to condense their supply chains, but also is looking for assurance that it's a proven market with the right labor fundamentals, the right access to innovation and R&D, and we have that. So that's why we're really excited. And the Garanet project.
Yeah, tell us what that does to set us up. Exactly.
So, and we've said it for long. I know you and I have had many, many conversations about we can play in this sector because it's already here in the region. So the question becomes, how do we connect in the right places? And Garanet, I think, is how we plant the flag in Orange County being a hub for advanced API pharmaceutical manufacturing. And what that does for us is it's, quite frankly, the announcements put us on the global map where we have companies now from India reaching out to us because Garanet's an Indian company, asking, questions about relocation when perhaps they were thinking about Northern New Jersey prior, which is a contract manufacturing API hub that's established. What's going on in the Hudson Valley that's unique to where Garanet would come to Orange County? So we're having these conversations, and it's put us in a different category of project opportunities, I think, already, just the announcement alone. So again, when we're talking about chlorhexidine gluconate, it's a complicated compound. It's used in our everyday lives. It's utilized in hospitals across the world, frankly. And we'll have the R&D and the manufacturing in New Windsor. This will be the largest of its kind facility for antiseptics in the world. So we have something we can plant a flag in and say, Orange County is ready for prime time. Our region has been a player in the ecosystem for decades. We are the next frontier for pharmaceutical manufacturing, playing on the region's heritage. So that's what's really exciting about Garanet being one of the first in the modern economy to plant its flag in Orange County.
I was surprised early on in my economic development career to understand how important that was, that you cite even that first business there, that even competitors of that business will look in your area because they know that it can work there and they'll cite, closely.
Absolutely.
So planting that first flag is important, as you said. You touched on R&D. We have some great higher ed institutions here, not just in Orange County, but in the region. But we do lack that research and development, a research college. How can we still compete despite that?
It's a great question. And on this point of labor, which has become, a critical variable up there with infrastructure when we're talking to companies, the question is, do you have labor today? Will you have the labor we need in 10 years from now? And answering that question is complicated, but critical. And the way we've been answering it is we don't have that research institution. But what we do have is a ecosystem of both community colleges and liberal arts colleges that have the infrastructure to be nimble and offer what's called micro-credentials. So SUNY Orange in our backyard is one of the leaders, I think, in the SUNY system in offering micro-credentials, not a 2-year degree, but a 6-month, 8-month training program specific to what a company needs, what a sector needs. So, a pharmaceutical manufacturer needs to hire 50 quality control specialists. That's a micro-credential that SUNY Orange very nimbly can put together and say, instead of sending people to a 4-year school or a 2-year school, I can give you the skills you need within 6 months. And that is a critical factor that I think, because there's a labor shortage nationally, communities need to get creative with the way they're going to answer this question. And I think activating community colleges, often institutions that can tap into underserved and also underrepresented communities in the labor market, offer them training, offer them a pathway to employment, direct entry to the workforce. I think that's how we can plug one of the holes, in the labor, conversation we have with companies. We don't have an R&D, 4-year research institution, but what we do have is colleges who will roll their sleeves up, customize programming for you, and make sure you have a critical mass of labor for your day one operational start. And that's what helped us, frankly, win the Garanet project. We don't have Binghamton University in our backyard.
Right.
But what we do have, nimble, hungry community colleges that come to the table and can train on the fly. And I think that's critical.
And I know you've credited SUNY Orange for playing a big role in landing Garanet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Chris Young and Dr. Jean Leandre at SUNY Orange, they were at the table with the project day one, with when we met with you and the community college, and their can-do attitude, their ability to be flexible in what's traditionally a very bureaucratic structure, of higher education, I think was a breath of fresh air to the company. And also, Chris Young is a semiconductor technology engineer by trade.
So a lot of people don't realize that.
She spoke the language, and that helped us put us over the top. But it was that nimble labor infrastructure where, 4-year institution is always great. But if you're not activating your community college network, I think you're missing the boat. And we're thankful to have partners at SUNY Orange who really get that the workforce moment is now. We need to beef up our credentialing program and our connection to the community. And I think it's really moving the needle for us.
All right, getting back to the high growth, high impact sectors,
yes,
microchip manufacturing. Everybody seems to want a chip fab in their region, but there are limiting factors. What is the real opportunity for Orange County to get in the microchip manufacturing space?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That is the question. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone wants it. To attract a Micron type project or a Global Foundries, a real chip, fab, call it fabricator, chip fab manufacturing operation. You need tremendous water, tremendous power, and a mega site, we'll call over 500 acres. Now, what I think our immediate opportunity is, while we look for a mega site, right, to attract a chip fab, and that's a 10-year, 20-year effort often. Talk to the folks in upstate New York who have, dedicated their career to just identifying a site to make it happen, and then wait, and a decade later they get one like a Micron, which is, then you can hang it up. Our opportunity is what's called the semiconductor supply chain. So the scale of these projects are so significant. They're often, statewide, multi-state impacts as pertains to, supply chain manufacturing. And when we say that, we mean the supportive pieces of equipment, the specialty tools, the natural compounds, the advanced precision instruments that are used in the semiconductor process. So, think about Micron. There are certainly hundreds of suppliers to Micron who manufacture specialty tools that could be the size of a pen, that could be large, informatic systems that are utilized in the chip operation. The supply chain is so vast, and that's in part what brought us to Taiwan. It was let's meet with the fab operators and understand their needs. But importantly, let's look at the supply chain, because the supply chain, instead of a mega site, you could do a 500,000 square foot building, a 300,000 square foot building with moderate water and sewer and semi-moderate power, creating specialty tools that are used in the chip manufacturing process, but are not manufacturing chips themselves. So our whole thesis being in Taiwan was, by locating in Orange County, we're calling the bridge between New York City and Albany. Mm-hmm. Where you have the National Center of Semiconductor Excellence in Albany. You have amazing upstate activity in semiconductor innovation. You have the downstate innovation ecosystem, R&D, talent in New York City. We bridge those two markets, which makes sense to locate supply chain manufacturing. So we have the shovel-ready sites. We have infrastructure that can accommodate the supply chain. Think again, specialty tools, advanced packaging, R&D. And it makes sense to locate here logistically, because you not only can connect to New York City and Albany, but there's a dynamic chip manufacturing ecosystem in the tri-state, to which, as you know, we're so logistically advantaged to reach within one day, whether it's Boston or New Jersey or Connecticut. So the innovation ecosystem within 300 miles is vast. In Orange County, given our site profile, our infrastructure profile, and our connection and our equidistance to two major chip innovation markets, I think positions us well to accommodate the supply chain manufacturers, the suppliers who will need to be close to these fabs. They don't need to be next door, but they need to be proximate.
Sure.
And I think that is message resonated in Taiwan. In fact, we had then a delegation come back to visit us a few weeks after we came back from Taiwan. So a lot of it is thinking about the specific processes and tools and critical materials used in the process and positioning our market to showcase logistical efficiency, but also has the right site and infrastructure profile to accommodate the needs of these suppliers. And there are many, many out there that we're simply not seeing every day. We're not hearing their names, but they're critical players in the semiconductor economy.
If we're able to attract manufacturers in the semiconductor realm or in the supply chain, as you say, what does that mean for jobs for people here? Are they better jobs? Really, what's the promise of those opportunities?
Yes, certainly. So, you have, well-paying advanced manufacturing careers. I wouldn't even characterize like similar to Garanet, assuming, the project continues at this fashion and we close it, we're not creating jobs, these are careers. And that's how I see the semiconductor sector. And that's why it's so important that we remain aggressive in trying to court it, the supply chain, the R&D, because, I had the opportunity to come back and work where I grew up. This brain drain phenomenon, as you know, is real.
Sure.
We're competing with New York City and Boston, the major markets, and the talent is flooding to these markets. Attracting companies like this keeps talent local. It makes sure people have, family-sustaining wages. It's creating critical, materials that are not just utilized in everyday life, but also, critical for supply chain resiliency for the United States. So the scale of the sector, both semiconductors and pharmaceuticals for that matter, it's both locally significant and I think nationally and regionally significant. And that's why we need to be so aggressive in attracting it. And we're not thinking about winning a project today or tomorrow, but it's 5 years, it's 10 years. It's all that preparation work for the time when you get that call. You have the site that's ready with the infrastructure, with the supply chain logistical efficiency, where you can sit down with the company and you can answer all those questions up front because you can bet your bottom dollar there will be dozens and dozens of markets and communities across the country fighting for that project.
Mm-hmm. Since long before I got into economic development, the yearning here in Orange County is always from economic development has been the brain drain, as you talked about.
Yep.
Families wanting their children to be able to be educated and come back here and have a career. Or if they skip college, if it's not for them, to be able to find those opportunities.
Absolutely.
We've seen a huge improvement over the last couple of decades, but what you're talking about really creates the opportunity to have that dream.
Yeah, and that speaks to the collaboration between, I think, our two organizations, which is, developing, these future-ready, market-ready sites for when we get that call from the company. We need to be quicker than our competitors because, again, there is competition, not just in New York and New Jersey, but we're competing with the South, with the often the Midwest, for pharmaceutical and the advanced manufacturing projects. So we need to think 5-10 years ahead is what we're doing now to develop sites that are ready to compete for these projects because other markets are doing that right now. And we cannot fall behind. We can't afford to fall behind.
Mm-hmm. Last sector I want to touch on, really hits home to a lot of people in some of our communities: warehouse distribution, logistics, distribution centers. People, tag them as warehouses simply. How do we reckon with that segment of the market right now?
Yeah.
Which of those types of projects do we want? Do we want to incentivize some of those still? Do we not need to because of the traction we have here? Where do you see kind of the warehouse market, the future of that in Orange County?
It's a good question. So on the point of needing them, I think Orange County, when you look at the market, we play a critical role in the Northeast supply chain. It's food, it's pharmaceuticals, it's critical materials, it's consumer items that are being warehoused and moved to various consumer markets locally and across the Northeast. So logistics plays a critical role in our economy, but also making sure items get to our doorstep every day, right? So reckoning with, the often friction with logistics is, I think it's a product of we need to ensure we continue to look at our comprehensive plans. I think we need to plan for the future. These logistic sites, often should be clustered. They certainly should be clustered near interstate highways. They should be clustered near, major population centers. So as we think about logistics, we need to think about the critical role it plays in the broader supply chain of the local community, but also the region. And then from an employment perspective, there are folks who, certainly have their careers, working in logistics operations, and the pay it can often be competitive. You look at employers like McKesson and Cardinal Healthcare, and even Amazon, who offers, competitive benefits and 401k match, and planning for the future, and, paying for, your advancing your college education if you're a full-time associate there. So there are benefits, but these jobs often, they either meet people where they're at, or often people can make a career out of them. And as the facilities get more advanced, as will come the as the facilities get more advanced, as will come more advanced jobs managing robotics and advanced information systems, and data management, and, supply chain operations. So as the facilities get more complicated, I think the quality of jobs increases as well. Yeah.
Great. Let's stick with financial incentives right now. Obviously, that's where I'm focused right now here at the Orange County IDA. For a while, we would throw anything we could trying to attract an employee here, because we just were trying to build the market here 20 years ago, let's say. But now Orange County is truly on the map. It is a destination. It's a place that some employers want to be.
Yep.
Do we still have a role for incentives? Are they still needed? Tell us exactly how they fit into the current state of Orange County's economy.
Yep. So short answer, yes, absolutely. And I think, when you look at the Orange County market, we are often competing with similar markets that offer a lower cost of doing business. Think of Lehigh, Pennsylvania. Think of, comparable on price, but similar on market access is, areas of Massachusetts. It's Hartford, Connecticut. So we are competing from a tri-state perspective with legacy industrial markets that are different on pricing. So it is a critical equalization having the IDAs. But from an incentive perspective, I found that, when we're competing for a manufacturer, someone who has a high capex, they're creating, advanced jobs, creating products. Like we said, they always should have backup options, and they most of the time certainly do. So these incentives become a critical point in courting the company, no question about it. And sure, you need to have the right site, you need to have the right infrastructure, you need to make the labor argument. But the cost of doing business is a critical factor in locating a company for both short-term, capex investment, but also long-term longevity of the company. So the IDAs are critical. I think the work that the Orange County IDA does, particularly with updating your UTEP, you're not throwing, things against the wall now. It's tactical. It's sector focused. And that, I think, sticks out to the site selector community. It sticks out to the corporate community. It shows we have our eyes on the right types of sectors, eyes on the prize. So short answer really became a long answer of yes, it's critical. We need to make sure the playing field is generally even. And that's, these high impact projects. Like we said, we're competing with markets across the Northeast, sometimes across the country. IDAs are critical to winning those projects, no question about it.
You mentioned UTEP, which for the audience's sake, the UTEP refers to our Uniform Tax Exemption Policy. Every IDA must have them, review them periodically, and update them. We just updated ours last year in order to really provide the blueprint for what types of incentives go to what types of companies or what types of sectors. As you said, we focused on really being sector-oriented there, where we're saying these are the types of sectors, advanced manufacturing, life sciences, et cetera, that we want to bring here. And I remember in our meeting with Garrett, we mentioned that specifically. You're the type of company, exactly the kind of company we want here, that we revised this UTEP to feature. So
absolutely.
I think it's starting to pay off, and we're seeing what's happening.
Yeah.
We also have added housing, as you know, because really a critical issue here, obviously, the housing crisis. So we're trying to play any role we can to stimulate development in that area.
It's smart. I mean, housing is coming up in conversations that traditionally it probably wouldn't have come up in. Talking to companies that, again, are thinking about labor, housing has become, has really trickled into the labor discussion. It's not just, do you have the critical mass of labor, but do you have housing stock and amenities where I can attract talent, where I can keep talent, where, the engineers we're going to hire at a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility can live and have the amenities and the walkability. So it's creeped into, the industrial economic development world in a very blatant and critical way. So again, the work on the uniform tax exempt policy, I think, is perfectly aligned with trying to build a modern economy that is focused on building careers, manufacturing and doing research and development on critical products that, again, we're using in our everyday lives often, and attracting and retaining talents, combating the brain drain. I think that's what a lot of this is about, frankly.
Yeah, there's a couple sides of the housing piece. There's obviously almost the ethical piece where people have a right and deserve to be able to live somewhere and work in vicinity to where they live. But also it is an impediment to future economic development, as you said. They need to, companies go where the talent is, they need access to them.
Yep.
And if they can't live in the region, then they're not going to come here.
Absolutely.
So it's critical.
It's funny, the way I think about it, dating back to, when I ran an IDA and then going to like New York State Economic Development Council, all these conferences and so on and so forth, IDAs are no longer incentivizing what you read the legislation, like, horse racing. Right. They're evolving to meet the needs of the modern economy. And that is, you're seeing IDAs take on downtown projects, mixed use housing, because it is economic development from a labor perspective, but also, it creates construction jobs. It stimulates local communities. It increases foot traffic for small businesses. So we're not really incentivizing racetracks anymore. We're incentivizing, really community centric projects. And sure, it's commendable and it's progressive, I think.
You touched on our urban centers. Of course, we have 3 great cities here in Newburgh, Middletown, and Port Jervis. And I think at least 2 of them haven't reached in my opinion, their full potential. But what are the real opportunities that our cities can take that can seize to improve their own economies and the lives of their citizens?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we just had a discussion with all 3 mayors, and we tallied across all 3 cities quietly. There's probably north of $500 million of investment happening, whether it's industrial or infrastructure or housing.
Incredible.
Some of it in your backyard, in fact,
Sure.
in the city of Newburgh. But I think the opportunity is continuing to invest in revitalizing, older derelict spaces and turning them into mixed use, people generating, demand generating assets for downtowns. And also the cities have been great at, there's finite sites, so there's very limited opportunities for ground up, but looking at older industrial assets and either repositioning them for mixed use or trying to modernize them to attract employers to the community. And that with that comes, you have all 3 cities significantly investing in water, sewer infrastructure. So it's infrastructure, it's housing, it's where you have unique industrial assets. And I think all 3 mayors are great at this, keeping them open to the opportunity of attracting employers, particularly manufacturing employers. But it's like we said, it's housing, it's light industrial, it's infrastructure, and it's remembering to, as we do housing and reinvest in older structures, it's staying true to both the history of the communities, but also creating this sense of place that can attract talent and keep talent at home.
Mm-hmm. Okay, unfortunately we're almost out of time, which is, I feel like we're just getting going here.
Yeah,
it really did.
Yes, it did.
The last thing I want to ask you is looking ahead to the future. Let's say 10 years from now, 2035, with all the groundwork that we're laying together,
sure,
the vision that the partnership has set forth that we're all kind of rushing after. What do you see as the economic landscape 10 years from now? Give me your vision for what the economy looks like here.
Yeah, that's an exciting question, an exciting way to end it. I think, for us, we've laid a foundation. We need to continue building, again, sites and infrastructure and labor. But 10 years from now, I see us being that hub for advanced manufacturing by way of pharmaceuticals, and particularly API, right? Active pharmaceutical ingredients, playing a role in the semiconductor supply chain, bolstering our position in food and beverage processing, but really a manufacturing, R&D, advanced economic development economy is, I think, where we can be in 10 years. And it's all, I think, contingent on continuing to build on the momentum that we've been building collectively, which is sites, infrastructure, labor, over and over again. We need to continue to double down on these beliefs, and that's how we get to the end zone of creating an advanced economic development economy 10 years from now. We can do it. We're looking at the end zone, but now it's doubling down on our beliefs, our mission, and making sure 10 years from now, when opportunities come up, we have the site and we have the market that can satiate. So it's pharmaceuticals, it's semiconductors, it's food, and advanced materials. No question about it. We can get there, and we have the right team to do it.
The sites are definitely key, and I think that's a piece of the work that a lot of folks don't see behind the scenes that we're doing. Yep. We're doing a lot of work. We had a big call about that yesterday. Great strategy for trying to identify sites, ready them, advance them through the approval process, get the public to be a part of that planning process, understand what's happening here. So it's exciting times. Really looking forward to it.
It's like the modern space race, right? It's site development, and those communities that have the sites, that have the infrastructure, that build workforce pipelines, will play a role in attracting advanced economic development. And I think our county now, our team, really has our arms around that concept. And that seems to be a critical piece of our next 5-year strategy. It's the space race, and we need to come out on top, and we will come out on top.
Absolutely. And it's, as you said at the top of this, all of the agencies that work together in economic development, including the Chamber, tourism as well. Obviously, our organizations, we're all rowing in the same direction. We all see the same dream that we're just running towards it together, arm in arm, and it's been exciting.
Yes, it is.
And I'm looking forward to the future for sure.
More to come. Certainly more to come.
Conor, thank you so much for joining us. This was great. I'd love to have you back sometime. Give us some updates on some of these exciting projects you're working on.
Name the date.
All right,
I'll be
terrific.
back. Thanks,
Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Building the Future. I'm your host, Bill Fioravanti from the Orange County IDA. Continue to follow the podcast and catch us next time on the upcoming episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.